I think we got this. Okay. We are live and direct. I just want to let you know before we get started, anybody in the chat that says anything about the Browns losing will get the gas face. I'm telling you right now, I don't want to hear about the Browns losing to, of all people. Can you believe this? The Browns lost to the Steelers. I'm just not even understanding how could this be possible. You see how she's representing that SD hat? Look at that. I was hoping we could have a collection like that. So the Browns officially, we lost. We understand that. But we don't want to hear it in the chat, okay? So if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I know you're gonna go ahead on and put your black and yellow. We know what it is. All right. It's okay. I'm about to bring TC in because this right here is some bull fragger paggernackle. We're just not understanding how that could possibly be. What's up, TC? I done already got it started. We're not having no shade throwing. This ain't the shade room, okay? So no shade on the Browns. So they definitely lost. So we definitely want to start with that. Before we just get my position, before we get started into today's topic of 400 years without a comb, of course, I'm going to introduce, Cheryl again, because we may have some new people coming in the chat. So before I get started, we had about over 10 people come through Eventbrite, which you are getting rave reviews from so Eventbrite. So I'm gonna send them some super duper shout outs because they are feeling your vibe. Miss Morrow starting off with Latoya. We have Marva. We have Shanti of the Downtown Women's Center Organization. We have Shrine of Shay, okay? We also have the Jeri Curl disaster. I don't know what that means, but we didn't do it, okay? We also have Thurman, and we also have Camille Orica. I think I'm saying your name correctly, Camille Orica. And then we have Sinalong. So we would like to thank you guys so much. That's the people, our Eventbrite fam. We are appreciating you. Cheryl, we thank you so much. Eventbrite is loving you. So we just wanted to make sure we send a super duper shout out to all the folks in Eventbrite for participating in this online interview with Cheryl Morrow. Is absolutely phenomenal. Also, as we wait for a couple of people to come into the building, did you get a chance to see Ava DuVernay's Colin Kaepernick's Black and White? Did you get a chance to see that by any chance on Netflix?
I have not. I was told to see it, but no.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a quasi. I have to, only because it actually fits into what we're talking about today. In case you did not know, because a lot of people are wondering, how did Colin Kaepernick go from a quarterback, I guess you would call a top quarterback. I don't watch sports, so I know I'm jacking this up. But a top quarterback player to an activist, and just take a wild guess of how he got started on his road to activism. Just imagine where this came from. You want to take a guess, Cheryl? Where did this come from?
I would assume. I would assume the very historical, revolting position of kneeling, but no, I have no idea.
So the kneeling is what we see, but the behind the scenes of the kneeling started with his hair. Yes, guys. So that's about as much as I'm going to give into. So this is why what we're doing today is so important, because a lot of people really think, it's just hair, it'll grow back, but you don't know pain and you don't know shame. We know physical pain. If you ever had your ass whipped, that hurts, okay? If you ever been punched, that hurts. If you ever have somebody talk about you, that hurts. But there is no pain like the pain of somebody talking about you and your hair. I'm telling you, if you have never felt that, I do not wish that on my worst enemy. TC, have you ever been picked on because of your hair? No? Bless you, child. What about you, Cheryl? Have you ever been picked on because of your hair?
I had a very interesting academic career because obviously my father was the big wig on campus, and I went to a very religious white racist school. But
Really?
I kind of was exempt because my dad was
The man that's sitting next to the man that's sitting next to the yeah, man.
the man, and
Okay,
so
the man.
money makes you immune to racism.
Huh.
And my
Okay.
father taught us money, power, and hair and beauty through the way he ran his local politics, which is an interesting story, which I tell in Heirloom. And so you're kind of immune. That is one of the reasons why economic power is so important, and that we also make sure that we first capture and capitalize on this industry because it's ours and it's the most accessible, and it's very rich and wealthy and prosperous. So yeah, no,
Okay.
I was
Wow.
not.
Okay. We got the
But
chat.
they tried, but it didn't work.
It didn't work.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just here to tell you, unfortunately, I know it's the worst thing
Yeah,
ever.
it is.
It's something that you can't wrap your brain around, especially as a kid. Now, maybe as an adult, you see the context of hair and the role it plays and how people receive you. You understand the context of hair and a person's attraction or not being attracted to you. So
Mhm.
in those frames, you kind of get it.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
as a kid, I'm telling you, oh my God, it was the worst experience. I started my book off with that.
Yeah.
So Colin Kaepernick, I actually, this is my Halloween costume today. So I'm rocking the cap. If y'all, it got to me because who knew? Who
Yeah.
knew that it was his hair definitely played a pivotal role in his decision to really speak out, for Black lives really mattering and how people view us, when our hair don't look the way people think it should look. I can recall participating in, of all things,
Mhm.
a natural hair
Mhm.
expo, and
Mhm.
I was shunned because my hair was straight and it was blonde, and they were like, literally, you cannot sit with us. And I was like,
Mhm.
are you
Which is a whole nother
serious?
subject. Which is a whole another subject. But that makes also sense because the ones that did try to tease me, they were Black.
Yeah.
They weren't white.
Wow.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
which is today's subject and why Mr. Morrow wrote the book. And we'll get into that,
All right.
story.
So this, and I text TC like about after I got finished. I'm like, what you doing? And she like, oh, I'm driving. What do you want? I'm like, girl, you won't believe what. Oh, did you see the Colin Kaepernick? And she like, I said I'm driving. I'm like, okay, obviously I have no life, okay, but this would be a perfect segue into the topic because it is. And if you are in the chat, if you are on YouTube and then you are listening and you're watching and you know the atrocities, the anguish, the pain of being teased about your hair, whether as an adult or a child, just put a sad face in the chat because that definitely influenced him and his decision because how he was perceived as an African American male. So that's going to take us right into the topic today. Once again, we are so honored. We are always excited, way too excited. I can tell because the number in the chat just keeps growing. And we will, I mean, sincerely, guys, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for following us along this journey. This interview series was definitely needed. So we have in the center, TC and I, we are just again so honored to be sandwiching her in, Miss Cheryl Morrow. And to those of you who are new and maybe this is your first time to our interview series, woo, the numbers are growing, so I'm getting a little bit excited. I'm sorry, let me calm down. Okay. So Cheryl Morrow is the daughter of Dr. Willie Morrow. She's the heiress to the California Curl, a.k.a. and it's not the Jeri Curl, but some of you are not old enough to know the California Curl, but you may be familiar with the Jeri Curl. He is also the inventor. He holds the patent. You know, I just did my book. I know I went to Google University over the weekend, and I did not know that your father held a patent to the Afro Comb. I was like, here we go again. I had to get my MC light on. I did not know that. I did not know that. So this isn't it, but I wanted to bring it up because this is the tool that I thought Goody made the comb. You know, anybody? I didn't know a black man had anything to do with the Afro comb. Maybe the Afro pick because it had the fist on it. Some of you may remember this. I don't know if your dad has anything to do with this, but we'll talk about this as well. But for sure, the pick. Of course, I knew your dad had something to do with this because I would not be able to rock my Shaka Khan, my press and curl, because my mama saved up a lot of money out of her welfare check. Okay, before she could even get a job, she did to get her one of these things. This is the real deal, y'all, because my mama liked it because you can like anchor it and get it on there real tight and it wouldn't fight the afro. So if you know about this right here, it's her, and his name is actually on it. So this is the real one. Now we got some bootleg ones out here. We ain't gonna show them, but this is the one that her father invented. And so she told us last week, in case you didn't know, we haven't added much to the inventions and the creations of what we can or cannot do to Afro hair since her dad. And on her own, she is a cosmetic trichologist. She's also a scientist. She's also a cosmetologist. She's also an editor. And she's also a self-professed, which I don't know about y'all, but I'm about to join in that title, as well as an Intr-preneur. And you can check out our first interview if you want to know more about what it is to be an entrepreneur. So without further ado, can we just give it up? Let's come on, TC. Let's give a big round of applause for Cheryl Morrow. Oh, yeah. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Ladosha. Thank you, TC. Appreciate it.
TC like, So today, guys, you guys are going to love this. Get your ink pens ready because class is in session so you can stop guessing. We are going to be talking about 400 years. I'm talking about 400 years without a comb. Now, before you give that some explanation, we want you guys to know that number one, there's a book that her dad wrote. I saw it on eBay. I ain't gonna tell y'all what it's going for. Okay, I cannot afford it. Let me just say that it is. If you want to get it, okay. So it's on eBay for a whole lot of money. But there's also a documentary called 400 Years Without a Comb. And I thought everybody had a comb. And as I go around the world speaking to people about hair, one of the questions that I like to ask people is during slavery, what do you think happened? To our ancestors' hair, and people would say stuff like, "Oh, they put it in a ponytail, you know, they braided it up." I mean, all types of very interesting things that they would say, but they did not have a comb. And so her father did this document. Now, did he do the documentary?
He did it, I think it was 1991.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah, and let me just say this. The book is a 3 series. The first one was 1972. Then the revised one was, I think, 1986. And then the last one was 1992. So it's three different books called. But there's an interesting story about the 3 different generations of 400 years without a comb.
400 years without a comb. Okay. So we got just a couple of people in the chat. What's up, Dawn? Miss Brenda of OAB. Thank you so much for just coming right in on time. Andrea Catlin, I got you right this time, Andrea. They're all saying, what's up, Cheryl? What's up? What's up? What's up? They want to know more about 400 years without a comb. So far we know it's a 3 parts to the book. He has 3. Would that be different versions or just?
And you have to remember, because Mr. Morrow was still traveling when he wrote the first edition. The second edition is at the height of the curl, and so the art is different. The third one, the art is much more comprehensive and much more inclusive of all 3 of the other 2. But what most people don't realize, if you Google the prolific artists of Albert Fennell, Jean Cornwell Wheat, Jerry Logans, and Charles Chuck Rucker, all of those artists started as employees with Mr. Morrow. They were not famous, but there's something about 400 years without a comb. If you worked on it, you became famous afterwards. It's the weirdest thing. And those artists are, I think Chuck Rucker is deceased, Jerry Logans is deceased, Albert Fennell is deceased. I think the only one left is Jean Cornwell Wheat. She's here in San Diego.
Okay. A little known Black history facts, okay? Also, just a great contribution to great works. If you have not seen the documentary, 400 Years Without a Comb, clearly he was way ahead of his time, okay, to do something like that. It needs to be shown again. If I had to, I'd re-release it. So tell us about, because a lot of people take for granted that, we always had a comb. I know as a cosmetologist, I can't speak for all the other licensed professionals, but I'm going to tell you in my career, the number one reason that I lose a customer is because I tell them, you got to comb your hair. And so this is something that a lot of people don't believe, that Africans or Black people, African Americans, we don't have to comb our hair like white people. So tell us about 400 years without a comb. What's the drive? That's very powerful, by the way. I mean, 400 years. I mean, why 400? Because some people don't know why 400.
First of all, my father had a deep esoteric introduction into the esoteric arts of African thinking. And so he lockjaw really focused on and locked down his focus on the comb itself. But as his daughter, when you go back into the papers and you want to really know why people do the things they do, most African Americans and maybe most Africans don't know that the comb itself is not a beauty implement. And that even blows their mind altogether. The word comb is short for combining. And the comb is a electrical magnetic tool. It's an energetic. It's aura hygiene, not physical hygiene. It's a representation of the subconscious cleaning, spiritual cleaning.
Now see. Now I was trying to be all professional, but now my ebonics and everything gonna come on out. I was trying, y'all, but I can't. I can't. Could you please repeat that? Some people, oh man, I blew back.
Let me there's a Adinkra symbol called, I think, the Dwafe, and because beauty is a spiritual status. It is not a beauty implement, so to speak. So when you comb your hair, mainly, if you were to really think back into your memory, people just stuck the comb in their hair. was not to comb or groom. It was not a grooming tool per se. But when you talk about grooming and combining energies, then we shorten the word, the Greek word, then it's comb. Then you're talking about your aura hygiene. And then it began to mutate into beauty, in a grooming tool. But it is not the esoteric true meaning of a comb is a aura cleansing tool. It is to be stuck in a part of the head where you have the opening of the soul, and you put it there. The comb is like a talisman. It holds meaning to you or your tribe or your group or your soul, your subconscious mind. And you put it in your head, right where the probably the section where the pineal gland is, and you put it there, and it's a symbol of, and then you sometimes, and you're picking, and you're not basically combing for tangles or beauty purposes. You're combing it because you're cleansing your energy net, your energy field, your magnetic field. And so once you go back and you really deal with that, that is why hair is such a subconscious fixation for African descending people. And you not just a beauty fixation. It's a really whole part of the soul, the soul's status. Are you cleansed on your energetic field, your magnetic field? And that's basically what the comb signifies. But to say 400 years without a comb, then that would make sense. 400 years without a soul, without our true energy, our true status, our true behavior, our true African center. That is more of the esoteric meaning of the word, or the term, or the name of the book, 400 Years Without a Comb. Now, and it does go into our beauty status in North America, not so much in Africa, because we are talking about a a journey, a transatlantic maafa, a trip outside of our home into a new place called North America, and what that subconsciousness of not having that comb, what it did on the mentality of African people in the New World. So that was basically his story, and that's why it starts on the plantation, because you're talking about a being very maligned or malignant. We have our beauty; it's very malignant. It's out of balance. It's disjointed. It's fragmented. And so us trying to get that back in balance is where you have this whole journey from plantation, the most grotesque beauty, all the way to the Renaissance period, where you have us coined as the world's beautiful people. So, what happened in that particular alchemical process of our evolution of becoming the world's beautiful people, and how does that happen without a subconscious shift in our mentality, in our spirit? So that's basically why he wrote the book.
Wow. Now, my Aunt Mary, she didn't coin you as the most powerful, brilliant, wise woman all the way from Memphis. She is just like in the chat, lighting it up. Thank you, Aunt Mary, which I definitely concur. Let me, so so I know TC's going to come back in a minute. She's having a little technical difficulties, but I'm just going to kind of follow you along with the esoteric meaning of the comb. So, like when I was doing research for my book, and I came across so much research that didn't directly speak to what you're saying about the esoteric meaning of the comb, but for sure, I was definitely coming to a conclusion that cleaning yourself was a part of a divination process. It really had nothing to do with beauty. It was about revering and respecting the divine. And so that really, it threw me, because when to me, when you think of spirituality, you primarily think of religion. you know. And I don't know, I'm not an avid Bible reader, but I do recall like one time my mom braided my hair, put cornrows, and my grandfather made a comment that the Bible said that we should not be putting cornrow braids, you know, in our hair. Now I don't know this to be true, but the whole process of cleaning and grooming was of divine respect for the divine that's in you. So, what do you know about that whole grooming divinity? Did you find any of that too? And what your father was saying?
Um, one thing that and I think that we should all at least get on the same page, regardless if we're scholars, we are of the faith community, or the science community. One thing that it is very clear that Black people, or the Black peoples, or in any other dark skin kind of cultural place, we're big on energy, and we're big on balance, and our beauty regimen, or our cultural beauty expressions, or our beauty practices, is to align ourselves with that divine, which we call nature. And so we find our energy grids, which means that our closest connection to the above, so we can create what above, so below. And we create this consistent energy flow. And it's very important for African peoples to be in that divine, balanced, very synergistic energy that makes us tick of who we are, which is closest to our innate natural expression. And when you look at the designs on that particular comb, and when you understand that the comb, which belongs to central, probably the Great Lakes region, the African comb, not so much of the Nile Valley as you go up to the northern portions of Africa, but you see that it is the same replica of the Ankh of the Nile Valley. It has a head, a body, and then prongs. That is an electrical, magnetic phenomenon. That is not a that is not a beauty implement. They're talking about energetic and in a electromagnetic field tool. That is energy cleansing. That is aura, your energy. And that is basically where the beauty starts, because of, as you say, so below, as above, so below. Well, that you cannot do that without the electromagnetic field. And that is where the comb is a talisman. It's a representation of your energy. And once you understand that, you can begin to understand, if you look at transistors, you look at resistors, electrical tools, the comb looks like an electrical tool. It looks like the Ankh. It is your proton energy, your neutron energy, and your electrical energy.
Wow, that's quite profound. TC, your sound is giving us feedback.
That's quite profound. Maybe she's can mute it.
Okay. Whoops. Okay, we got it. Okay, you guys. Okay, all right, TC, we got. That's okay. You're good. You're good. You're good. TC's like, woo, woo, woo. It's okay. It's okay. So again, we are talking about the comb is not solely for the aesthetics. Now, let me just kind of move into a little bit of, we call it superstition. Okay, and so we hear three common things in our community about hair. Number one, no more, only one person on the head at a time. People do not like that. Number two, how do you dispose, of the hair? Okay. And then number three, I know y'all gonna get mad at me, but I have to say it. We're still struggling with good hair.
Yeah.
Now, so give us your take on these three common things. Now that we understand, because some of this maybe it's just in our DNA a little bit to just be really particular about who and what's in our hair, how to discard it. And then number three, this whole thing. People like to say, "Oh, we over it now." But no, I'm telling you, good hair is still alive and kicking in 2021. And then TC, we're gonna have you. Do you still have TC's gonna have some footage for us? So talk about these superstitions and the good hair.
Yeah.
In the context with the 400 years without a comb.
Yeah. And 400 Years Without a Comb is really a story of an apology of Mr. Morrow's, because of course he was taught self-hatred by either your features, your fennel traits, your hair, your nose, the size of your lips, and the texture of your hair. And just hitting on some of the superstitions, as you noted, LaDosha, is because we're taught from straight hair to curly hair, not curly hair to straight hair. And I always, well, when we get into even the hair loss conversations, it is very hard for a Black textured person to understand science, mathematics, um, geometry, calculus, algebra, chemistry, anything of those particular things without understanding it from an African perspective. Cosmetology is one. Cosmetology and chemistry will never make sense when you learn it from a straight hair perspective, both from a scientific straight hair perspective or even an image of people who don straight hair, which is actually scientifically doesn't make sense because there's not enough of them on the planet. So, curly hair is the human hair trait. It is the most human trait, which means that most people on the planet have TC's texture, my texture, your texture. It is it is nature's natural selection, and that is science. That it has nothing to do. No geneticist or physicist or medical doctor or dermatologist will disagree. It is a natural selection. Nature chooses that texture because of a dominant gene expression. So, with that being said, the superstitions, I have to say, are just mere ignorance. And it just
Okay.
comes from urban legend, and it must be corrected. And it's Black cosmetologists' job to correct them. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's our job. That is our job. Okay, let me get this here. There she go. Okay. Can you hear us now, TC? No? You can't hear us? Hold on. You got to unmute your mic. Got it? Let's try it again. No?
Got it.
Woo-hoo, there she go. Hey, hey, hey. She's like, whoo, it can happen. All right, so we got TC in the house having a little technical. It's funny because as we talk about hair and all this electromagnetic, maybe my hair and this comb with this wire teeth, my aunt also put in the chat before TC answers her question of what does that mean about the afro and the static is, you heard some of that. So can you answer that? That was from Mary Taylor Shelby in the chat about the afro and the static and how it flowers out. Any truth to that one?
Well, when I teach cosmetology, and there's a lecture I have called Mastering Texture. And when you talk about water, sunlight, temperature, air, and all of the elemental factors within an environment, curly hair does not reach length. Length is just one of those impossibilities. Not because, and well, let me just explain. Afro hair grows with mass, height, and width. Length is a downward phenomenon. Unless it falls to weight, that is when the hair begins to grow toward the shoulders down the back. Unfortunately, because of the beauty standard, the down on the back and shoulders is the only one that is really celebrated and coveted. But when the hair gets a water trigger, like a hydro trigger, it wants to go in everything that has a life force, which means that it pays attention or it follows the tropic laws of an environment. It wants to go towards the sun. Everything wants to grow towards its energy field. And curly hair, because it spins on its axis and it grows and it has this orbital kind of shape, it wants to grow toward its source. But recessive hair types grow opposite to a life force. It grows to the ground, it grows downward. And so some of these things that we desire because they look beautiful or they cosmetically look desirable, unfortunately, we're going against the nature of hair. One is shrinkage. To say black hair shrinks when it's already coiled is really kind of like a diametrically opposed kind of information. But yet again, our job is to but curly hair already is very very proton philic, which means that it already has a lot of electrical charge, a very balanced electrical charge. So if you put it on a static, it's black people's hair. You can't see natural black people's hair go static because it already has a very balanced electrical electrons and protons. So it's not going to only recessive hair types will you see a physical a proton, the hair will go up. But black people's hair is already that. It already has a balance of protons and electrons, so you're not going to see the static. It's not going to.
All right.
It grows in that shape already.
All right, Miss Mary Taylor Shelby. I hope that answers your question. That was good. So TC, do you want to you got your question? She's like, I think I can get the question. So we're gonna have some footage, but her computer is like just not acting right. But that's okay. We're fine. So, you say you what?
I can show it if you want to go ahead with that.
All right. So set us up with your clip. And we are ready.
Yeah, so thank you all for bearing with my technical difficulties. It is something in the air today, but so happy to be back with y'all. And so I found some footage that I wanted to share, and it features Mr. Willie Morrow. And one question I want to ask you, Cheryl, is something that he says in this footage. Like if you find it, Google it and watch the entire program. But Mr. Morrow talks about something called the inferior seed. I'm in my technological doings today. I don't know if y'all talked about that yet as I was trying to listen. But here we go. We'll see this, and then I'll ask you to answer that. Unpack
all right. Family in the building. Let's get ready for a clip.
All right. Here we go. All right. Okay. Here we go. It's coming.
We're patient. We are patient. And while she's waiting for the clip to come through, Brenda Hosey says she actually has the book, 400
Ah,
Years Without a Comb. I'm going to come steal it. You better have it. You better have it.
All right. Well, here we go. I think I
All
can.
right.
So hopefully y'all can hear it. Here we go.
My name is Willie Morrow. I'm the author of the 400 Years Without a Comb. Comb to the African represented more than an implement for the grooming of his hair. Unequally carved and beautifully fashioned, it told a story, his story. That's it. That's it.
So thank you. So if any of you have the opportunity, I encourage you to Google 400 Years Without a Comb, and you'll find the entire film where that I took that footage from, and Dr. Morrow goes in detail about that spiritual journey, and how we came to be where we are in terms of how we take care of our hair and how we feel and think about our hair. And he starts it off with talking about the inferior seed. And Cheryl, could you explain that to us?
um, by the way, that was my mother singing. Um,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, beautiful voice.
yes.
Um, let me just say, um, it was very hard for Mr. Morrow to talk about that. And because it's kind of um, so against his real thinking about the inferior seed, even though the inferior seed is a political, it's a socio-economic political tool, not that we really believe that, but because hair and beauty is attached to access, where you could go if you look a certain way. And so when he was talking about the inferior seed, he was talking about the new future of what Black people were going to have to go through to work their way to from the plantation to higher statuses of life. So he was talking that we were going to have to traverse through an inferior seed period. And and he really wanted to make sure that he clarified that the inferior seed was created by your oppressor as a socio-economic political tool. Does that answer your question, TC?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
that's
found that to be quite interesting. And thank you for.
yeah. It's funny. Like I hear you in your explanations. You're making it a point to say that number one, there's like a African esoteric way of thinking, whereas in this European mindset, we're very on the surface. So to me, when you first made the statement about inferior seed, I would think of someone or something being inferior. When you think of like I said, combing, the aesthetics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Though I would have to admit, and standing behind the chair, without knowing why, I just had a feeling that there was something more to the comb than
Absolutely.
just grooming. but I did not have the language to articulate the combing of the hair. And so you explaining to us this other way of thinking, it's very, very, very interesting, because when we get our education about Afro hair, we don't get this type of school of thought. We definitely don't get this type of just overall information, period. So all the people in the chat are just, very appreciative, humble. I keep hearing words like intelligent, enlightened, powerful. So we all are new to this. So I just want to thank you so much for helping us understand this from another perspective than just the beauty, because after all, most of us have heard our parents say that beauty is skin deep, but ugly is to the bone. And so that's just, or it's not about vanity, it's about sanity. And so that there's another meaning to the regimen of caring for yourself that's bigger than the scope of, can you make your hair straight? Can you paint your lips red? There's something else that's going on. And maybe some of our superstitions and our knowings about the Afro hair and how it responds to, the environment, we were not able to articulate it. So it's coming across as superstition or arrogance. Some of it just got lost because we were not able to trickle these theories down. So we definitely appreciate that. But what's most important as we go into the second half, which I'm hoping everybody's going to be ready for this. In the second half, we're going to be talking about this whole thing of what's going on with hair loss. This is probably the biggest, and I do mean the biggest challenge for us as licensed hair professionals, even hair professionals. I have to admit, sometimes I agree with the customer. I'm concerned about a person who's talking about hair and their hair isn't kept. Now, I'm not anti-wig, let me just say that. So don't come after me, because sometimes you have to wear a wig for personal or just medical reasons. It's none of my business, but I'm not an anti-wig person. But we do know that sometimes, in lieu of, I cannot tell you how many natural hair stylists that I've thought that was their hair, and they will confess to me behind the chat that the hair that they're having hair problems, yet they're promoting and teaching about hair loss. So begin us with the topic, the understanding of, number one, what is hair loss? And then number two, how is it different, or is it different for African Americans?
Let me draw some pictures. I want everyone to see if they, in their mind's eye, can see a straight-haired person, usually a European, with trying to wear locks. Have anyone ever seen that? We've seen it. But you've never seen a straight hair person who wears locks that is beginning to lose their hair. But we've seen Black people who wear locks who is starting to lose their hair. Now, the reason being, and why hair loss, and to understand it from, yet again, a African perspective, is because you need to understand that what is going on in a follicle of a Afro dominant texture than a recessive hair texture. It is, what's going on in the follicle is not the same. One texture, like the Black person who wears locks, who is beginning to lose their hair or it's getting thin. When you see that, it is because the hair of a Black person, what's going on in their follicle, the hair must always go in an upward direction. for it to maintain its health. Once it is impeded in any way for it to turn underneath the dermis and shoot out in a twisted upward way, anything that pulls it down going towards the ground or the floor, that is what you call the beginning of a natural popping, then a shedding, and then a very slick, smooth balding, and then that scalp begins to scar, and then it begins to harden, and then the hair will not grow back again. Okay.
Wow.
You usually see that from your temples all the way back to where you call the crown. The crown, even white men with male pattern baldness, they will bald from the tip of the crown all the way to the foreskin, forehead, or recede from the foreskin all the way back to the middle of the crown. That is where the skull, the bone, the skull is closest to the surface of the skin, and you don't have a lot of fat connective tissue or subcutaneous tissue. You don't have any fat, wet, spongy,
Layers.
well,
Yeah.
you just don't have enough room for trauma. The areas of the scalp where it's meaty and you can pull the skin and you can pinch it, that area of the scalp can take more pulling and trauma. But the areas that are closest to the surface of the skin, those areas will most likely, your hair will be pulled out, and the genetic material is very easy to be all pulled out, and that cell production will begin to not generate hair again. And if it does, it will be by a corticosteroid, and at that point, it's more like facial hair or a stubble. It probably
Right.
won't be the hair of your birth. Now, and that is one of the reasons why I created the discipline cosmetic trichology, for that very reason. I wanted to deal with textured hair loss, because textured hair is got a lot going on inside of the follicle, even
Yeah.
before it gets to the surface. It is twisting. It has a electromagnetic field around its papilla. It has, it's a lot going on. There's a lot of electricity. There's a lot going on that causes it to twist and turn and do other things, because it's really ironic that when you do see the microscopy or crosshair diagrams on Google in the image section, you see a straight hair.
Absolutely.
But it's always going upward. It's never going downward.
That's right.
So they even know that, they're kind of stealing some of your genetic traits, but yet they make the hair strand straight. And so we are the first company, and I made sure that, and maybe next week, I will unveil our first anatomically correct diagrams of what curly hair looks like in our dermis, what it looks like in our skin.
Yeah, this is all that I have. I actually
Right.
have a scale of the skin in the back that I use, but this is what we typically use, guys. This is why I'm putting it up. And as you can see, just in her explaining, which, by the way, we got Marva C in the chat. That's our YouTube chat. What's up, Marva? She is like feeling your vibe. She all in the chat like, yup, true. She telling the truth. So there are some people who are definitely feeling you. The YouTube and the YouTube streets, they feeling you all the way, because we understand that there's a struggle with this diagram.
Yeah.
Even when I'm talking to customers and trying to explain, I find myself having to take my finger and try to move that, that image to, to go down.
Well,
And
you don't have to do
also,
it. You don't have to do it anymore. We've created the diagrams, and we've created the animation also, which is going to be unveiled in November. So all of these things I created is for hairstylists like you, LaDosha, to be able to sell to your customers, and to have them in your salons, so you can, have them up, and you can have them in an Afrocentricity, a psychology, the sociology, the science, everything that aligns with your message, according to your clientele, and all
absolutely.
the way from curly to straight.
And this is really, really important, because when you talk about locks or braids, a lot of these are coined as like natural hairstyle, natural hair, things that are best for natural hair, this type of stuff. But to women, or to professionals like you and I, these are hairstyles, guys. You're still manipulating, and these terminologies of protective styles, the terminology of natural hair, and organic natural ingredients. You speak to how confusing that is, and its contribution to a lot of sometimes irreversible
Mm-hmm.
hair loss, because people are
Absolutely.
putting like you see them with the weaves, and they're putting this, and they leave the sew-ins on the hair for months. Now, my colleague, Dr. Spritz, I know he won't mind me saying this before you give the response, but I literally watched him in the hair salon say, I'm not doing any sew-ins on any person unless it's for like an aesthetic, like a wedding or a movie, because women were so addictive to the sew-in, they just would not take it off. The damage to the scalp, they're not understanding that you need hair to do these things, and so they don't understand that the scalp is a microbial habitat. It is a microbial habitat. And I know that's why I said I don't want to get on folks about their weaves and their wigs, but you have to understand her response when we talk about the dangers of these protective, natural, organic. These are styles. So how do these contribute to, sometimes, and in most cases, it is irreversible hair
Mm-hmm.
loss at such an early age, such an early age.
And the reasons why we do these things are because of social uh, um, constructs. And let me just say this: a mother and will have two children, a son and a daughter, and the son will say to his mom, Mom, I want to start, braiding my hair, and she'll agree, and so he starts to corn roll his hair. The daughter will say the same thing, Mom, I want to start braiding my hair. The the social constructs for her is to divorce her from, her beauty process, rush her to immediate gratification, put extensions in. 2 years later, the boy's got thick, long, gorgeous, really healthy scalp and hair, and the girl has a very weak hair strand, maybe less hair than maybe 50% than her brother, and then she has other issues. Now, why the two different social constructs? And that in those pressures to have these things, to rush her through this really quick beauty process, and so she doesn't learn how to take care of her hair while it's short, medium, thicker, longer. The boy gets to really marry himself to the short and longer, 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 longer. He has his whole beauty journey. The girl doesn't, she's rushed forward. And these are the conforming systems that we, are based on gender. But, you know, for hair to be covered for 2 or 3 months at a time, and then you look at the quality of it, lets us know that hair needs to be in a very tropic bio in its natural biosphere. It needs air and it needs water, it needs sunlight. And so you look at the quality of the hair. And if the cosmetologist, like, and we have to be brave, just like you, LaDosha, you know, you have to put your foot down and say, hey, this is a scalp that is interacting with a very alive atmosphere in an environment. And your body has the same environment. And so, you know, uh, and you know, there's not a lot of cosmetologists that are going to take control like you, LaDosha, but I do believe that if we can give a little more credence that is more logical and more sound, I think customers and clients will follow us to a whole new Afro future. I believe that. And if we learn the new terminology, we understand we're talking to them and we're making sense and we're explaining why they need to do things, and we can guarantee great results. And you know, I think that we can create a whole new generation that sees themselves in a Afrocentric, a scientific perspective, and then begin to create new behavior.
Okay, now Dr. Tamika Ellington, I gotta put you on. She said, "Man, it should." I want to read this correctly. She said, "Dude, it sure would be nice if we had those diagrams in the exhibit." Okay, so yeah,
and I didn't think to, and I didn't think to.
Yeah,
LaDosha will be the first one to have them.
So, so again, you know, if you are liking this, please do not forget to share the interview. Please share it. Everybody, they're just blowing you up again. Ephraim says the behavior and the culture, just a lot of phenomenal feedback again. You know, of us just wanting to know more about the whole science of Afro hair. TC, thank you so much, guys. The more you hit those hearts, the more you share, we do get in the algorithms, and people can learn more about 400 years without a comb. TC, you have a question for Miss Morrow?
Honestly, well, yeah, I have a question. I'm just learning so much. You know, the pen and paper is at hand. There's a lot of, we again have, this conversation has revolved a lot around the science of hair and skin, and it's something that is not taught, at least anymore, in school as part of like life skills. I don't even know how many curriculums have life skills programs or classes as vigorous as they used to be. But you know, just in practical terms, for those who are wondering, okay, well, what can I do better? What should I be doing in terms of taking care of my microbiome and my scalp and making sure things are up to par? You know, what are some things that are some must do's? You know, in terms of taking care of this part of our body.
Well, one of the things that your question reminds me of a mother that I went to a natural hair expo one time, and I think the first one and the last one, and she asked me the same question. And one of the things that that differs between the two natural hair movements, the 1960s are, which is, you know, our mothers and grandmothers and great grandfathers, they're natural. They're 1959, you know, 1964, maybe 1964 to 1975, 1977. The difference is that one is not trying to be natural. They're trying to be Afrocentric. One is culture. The other one is trying to be anti-chemical, and it is much more in protest of chemical usage. And one of the things that I find peculiar when they do the big chop, or they are telling their natural hair journey, is that you actually are going back to your childhood. So you actually left. And so one of the things that I told to this mother she had these beautiful children. So I said, let me ask you a question. Do you do your children's hair? She says, yeah. Oh, and she was very proud. And so I says, is there any reason you can't apply that to you? And I says, that's because you're in the natural hair care industry and your kids are not. So the best thing that I could basically say is that, if we can all have a meditation period, if we can just realize what our mothers did, and that was basically some hydration, washing, twisting. And I got the Shirley Temple curls every Easter. So we had limited heat, but we had heat. We had it it was a moderation. And so when and if you do, dye your hair or whatever the case may be, moderation is definitely the key here. And I'm not going to say that, and as much as I am I call myself a professor. I am not one or the other. I am African. I am Afrocentric. That means that I get to enjoy the best of all worlds, as long as I make sure that I go back to a maintenance that is more natural to my texture. I go back. Now, whatever you guys like you say, LaDosha, wear the weave for the wedding, but go back and make sure that you do your due diligence. That is something that is much more conducive to the health of that specific texture. And usually it's in your childhood. We know what to do. I mean, this is not deep. I don't know why the natural hair care makes it so deep, but I understand. But
right, and let me just kind of speak to. I do have my bosses in the chat. And what's up, boss? Lavina Joseph is saying education to the youth and taking care of hair and an Afrocentric, concept is definitely something that's needed, and we need to definitely promote that. Now, it's no big secret that I have my background in hair care comes from a social work perspective. And that's why my book,
absolutely,
I definitely put that in there, that I am the outreach worker who dared. That it's time for a new conversation about hair. And so here we're having this new conversation. And when you come to our salon, you actually have to fill out a 3-page questionnaire where we're asking you about your hair, because for parents, what we want you guys to understand is that you are your child's role model when it comes to how to care for the hair, as far as like a regimen and what you need to do. Our jobs as cosmetologists is really to navigate you through, like she said, your styling options. I have my hair, people say all the time, that's your real hair. I'm like, come on, dudes. This is not my real hair color. But like she said, everything would be in moderation. TC has her hair, and I tell her like 3 months, you don't need to be in here. This is why she has the color the way she has it, so that she can get more of what's more conducive to her hair fabric. And this is why this platform, this interview of 400 Years Without a Comb is so important and is so relevant to today, because hair care is beyond the aesthetics. We're definitely getting into, like she said, some spiritual, some cultural. These things must be poured into you at home. It definitely must be poured into you as a professional. And we need more experts. We need more people who can do that discernment behind the chair to do what's right, for the client. Because after all, we're only with you for about, an hour and a half. So sometimes they give us too much credit. Like, oh, LaDosha, don't Oprah Winfrey me. I'm for home hair care. My whole salon is about using this trichology to empower people to do it themselves. The hair salon is not in lieu of what you should be doing at home. The hair weave, the locks and everything, because your hair has a cycle. So on that note, can you speak to the cycle of hair growth, like the 3 stages? Because a lot of people will say stuff like, my hair was perfect until I was 18 and she gave me that and she burnt my, or my mean babysitter, she put a relaxer in my hair. And people don't understand that one strand of hair has a life cycle. The hair that you have at 40 is not the same head of hair that you had when you were 15, and people are trying to go back. So can you give everybody an understanding of the life cycle of hair? It doesn't last forever. People think that this is the same hair I've had, pretty much since I was 15 or 8 or 21 or 30. So help us understand the cycle of hair growth, and how long does a strand of hair actually live on a head of hair?
I'm going to answer that in I'm a stickler for logic, and I want, if we cannot focus on, the hair cannot go through a triphasal system if the scalp doesn't go through 3 phases. So it's actually the scalp that goes through 3 phases. And
mic drop. Comb drop. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to do this. I'm from the hood. Not mic drop. Comb drop. Did you hear that, guys? This is why we have her on the platform. The chat is on fire. The YouTube streets, they running. Say it again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, TC.
Right. And so once we begin to really deal with why I only deal with Afro textures, because you're talking about dominance. And once we get the correction and the conditions and disorders, or even the understanding of the science of dominant traits, we will understand Afrocentric or texture-centric hair. Black children are the only humans on the planet whose hair changes 3 times. You have a very soft liquid, doesn't have a lot of cuticle on it yet. So it's very soft. It's called vellus or terminal. And it's very feathery, very light. The problem is that Black children's hair don't stop there. European or less recessive, more recessive hairs, they stop. Black children's hair doesn't stop because it has to coil. So there's a different phase in the scalp to support that symmetry. And that is when you start getting more fat. So you get more fat in the subcutaneous layer, then that is one more phase of the texture changing. That's why when we say good hair doesn't change. But the issue is, which is a whole nother story, because I'm trying not to get into the real deep metaphysical conversation about it while we hear it here. But Afrocentric, African descending children must change a 3rd time because it must hold, the texture must become dominant to hold the symmetry, the coils, especially if they start becoming very high coil counts, like very high textured and very thick and very thick woolly textures. So the more coils, the higher the coil count, then the higher the textures, and that is seen as not good hair, or what people call as 4C. Now, but the scalp is supporting the 4C, the 3C. The scalp is going through the triphasal, not the hair. The hair is irrelevant. The hair is only doing the instructions within side of the dermis.
I knew I wasn't going crazy. I knew it because I just could not articulate, because it's like it's out of the hair. I could never understand.
Yeah, the hair is not. Yeah,
I didn't understand, like, how are licensed professionals falling for this? He was trying to sell a product, first of all, and it's already out of the scalp. We deal with it, below. Okay, I'm sorry, I got a little excited. Okay,
right. And so you will have different kind of, maybe 1 or 2. No one has about 3 textures on their hair, which is ridiculous. But you have the same texture. The illusion, the optical illusion, is when, because everybody comes out of this cosmic blueprint. So everybody's follicles is on the scalp in a very spiral galactical pattern. The problem is that when the follicles are going around, the cuticles are pointing downward, which then begins to reflect. It is a little smoother, so it looks finer. And then people will say, "Oh, I have a better texture in the back than I have at the front." You know, so there is galactical, scientific, planetary, platonic. There's a very physical. The physicalities are there because of how and where the hair is pointing on the head, and it's the scalp that is triphasal, which has the evacuation and the resting and the anabolic process. But it's going on in the scalp. The electromagnetic field around the inner root sheath is calling on to the anabolic process. So you have this break, polymorphism, and you have the polypeptide and it's a chain. So it grows out. And then you have the resting, because of course that is the cell production is back into, a cellular mode. And then you have when you call the evacuation. Okay, so it's the hair is replenishing now, but dominant textures don't require cleaning in a way that is, it's not that you don't wash, it's just that curly textures, dominant textures, are what you call self-cleaning, which means they don't have an acid sulfur kind of degrading. So the surface of hair that has a very strong metasanozoic compound, it doesn't odor, it doesn't, so there is a self-cleaning to dominant texture. So the curlier the texture, the less you have to clean it. And that's just a whole nother subject. And I know I kind of veered off.
No. Let me tell you, in the chat, you got folks cussing. They like, you got this thing is on fire. So again,
let me finish the so I can make it seem logical. There is, when the hair gets straighter, it gets less human. And then that's when you have the sulfuretic smells, the odors. And then that's where you get into the insects and the other issues that trichologists have to deal with. And then you get into your pathologies and pathogens.
Wow. So we have a cosmetologist from Kentucky. I'm telling you, again, YouTube, thank you guys in the chat. We got some, again, Marvel, we got Mary, we also have Miss Foster. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the YouTube. Also our Eventbrite family, thank you. We have Melanie Higgins Day from Kentucky. She wants to know, what about hormonal changes throughout life? Would that also affect texture and curl pattern?
Usually around, I would probably say maybe 30, 31. Reason why I focused on Black hair loss is because Black women are my obviously favorite client, but Black women do not regularly, and I will say, I'm not saying that there's not exceptions. What I'm saying is that Black women don't suffer from general hair loss. And that is because of your estrogen content, but you are susceptible to high stress hair losses because you also have a lot of testosterone. Black women have more testosterone probably than the average Asian man, probably than the average European man. So your hormones are your male testosterone also makes you susceptible to lots of stressors. So what I would do is, before you go to the dermatologist, I don't work with dermatologists, I work with endocrinologists. I work with your OBGYNs, because that is when Black women need to make sure, if they don't do anything else, they have to keep their vitals, minerals and vitals, lots of iron. They got to keep it efficient, because you're susceptible because of the testosterone and the stressors.
They in the chat like, girl, bye. What is you saying? This is profound. Yes, Andrea, really. This is what. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you guys again so much. So you're talking about.
So what I would say, if you guys can stay on and let me just say this, especially younger women who are gonna probably, and let me just say this, and I know we haven't even gotten on the menopause conversation, which is a whole nother, and hair loss is a very difficult subject to kind of rush through. But when I teach Black hairstylists and trichologists about Afro trichology, not regular, because regular trichology is just hygiene for Europeans. It's nothing.
That's the one I got, y'all. I don't have the one she has. Okay, I just want to clarify that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But what I would do is to make sure that you get a good shake that has all your folic acids and iron, and to maintain, because hormonally you are the oldest human on the planet. You got to keep those, and you're susceptible to a lot of stressors. And since you guys can't tell people no, and Black women can't tell I don't want to, since y'all can't say those two things very easy, you need to have a good shake, good folic acid, good Q10s and minerals.
What about water?
Water, some great neutral distilled alkaline waters, and which is a whole nother
What
subject.
about like the hair vitamins and the drinks and
hair
things that
vitamins,
people
gummy bears.
Well, let me say this: if you guys decide to stress yourself out, no vitamins, because body does not really produce vitamins, are environmental. If you're doing the right thing to yourself, then you will not be deficient. But once you get deficient, to supplemental to do vitamins, I'd rather you just do your minerals, and to make sure that you keep your hormones, and that is to keep your stressors, because you're so susceptible, because you already have very high testosterone, and you already have high, and then when the testosterone and it gets imbalanced, and after 30, your estrogen, which is your beauty hormone, your estrogen is your beauty hormone. And so once that decides to, and then you're heading into what we call menopause, which is, I teach it different, but when you get to that stage, you have to make sure that you're supplementing, and usually that should be. And most people will always say, why are there so many more Black women in the Black church? Because Black women have more stressors, and we don't do a lot of stressors well. We tend to multitask, and we tend to do things that we shouldn't do, and especially when it comes to our chemistry. And so if we would really pay attention more to our chemistry, we would probably be a lot more healthy, a lot more insulin resistant hair loss disorders, which people just all of a sudden just go bald, and they're very shiny and tough, and the skin is dark.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we have a little microscope that we put on the scalp. And I always say we don't do this to play doctor, because we're not doctors. And I can just say that in the example that you just gave about, the importance of minerals, and, eating and trying, getting your food, your vitamin and mineral sources through whole foods. We are not doctors, by the way, guys, but you do hear this a lot from the medical community saying, hey, don't y'all be taking all this stuff, okay? They want you guys to try to eat a more well-balanced, diet, and understand what you're putting into your body. Check out with your doctor. Don't be Googling, don't be watching us to tell y'all what to do, okay? But we do have
right. And let me just say this, and because I do work with endocrinologists, and nutrition should be basic. But when you are going through the phases of life, to work with your cosmetologist and your endocrinologist at the same time, because the endocrinologists and the doctors, they don't know why you're losing your hair either.
Right. It's
Okay.
true. And we
So,
hear that. We do hear
yeah.
that a lot. We have a question that's burning up in the chat about the connect to thyroids in hair. I guess thyroid conditions are of concern. So what do we know about thyroids in hair?
Just from my experience, the thyroid in the thymus is your thermostat, and it is connected to, it is a blood, it's a pump. You have a pump here, and that is blood pressure, and dealing with, again, your chemistry, your body's chemistry. And there usually are stressors or in environmentals. Stressors are very, I wrote a thesis about 10 years ago called Crisis Consciousness. And the mind is the body's environment. I repeat that. The mind is the body's environment. And so once those stressors and androgens, they're poisons, and they get going, it is very good to go back to your gynecologist if you have visited your cosmetologist and she's noticing some difference in the quality of your hair, the odor of your scalp, and if she's noting some environmental differences, and you are probably having a little more shedding than usual, or you may have some breakage that is that is just not normal. It is
Right.
time to basically co-visit your endocrinologist and your gynecologist with your cosmetologist, because after you get a diagnosis, and especially of hypo or hyperthyroid diagnosis, then you're still going to have to work with your cosmetologist, and she's going to have to style around it if you're shedding or breaking or things of that nature. Either way, and what I do to my patients when they come, we get them in a regimen that is going to either support the diagnosis of your thyroid issue, if it's hypertension or low blood pressure, if it's too many androgens in the blood. But either way, it's a village kind of approach. It really is.
Okay. We're still getting a lot of, again, we appreciate you all so much for joining us. We're coming up into a close, but before we do that, we did promise you guys that if you followed and you watched with us, that we have some wonderful giveaways. So I am going to, I hope we still have Dr. Tamika Ellington in the chat. She is also the co-curator of the Textures exhibit at Kent State University. We've been giving these away, okay? So we know Ephraim Abdullah, he won one on the very first show. So Andrea Catlin, you are the winner of a ticket to go and visit the Textures exhibit at Kent State University. All you have to do is come by the hair salon and pick them up. She said, hey. So Dr. Ellington is in the chat. So we, as you all know, Dr. Willie Morrow is the largest donor to the exhibit, and it is a must see. It is a must see. As a matter of fact, next week before we go live, I'm celebrating my birthday at the actual museum. So I'm inviting people to come and meet me out there. So if you have your ticket, perhaps you can come on and follow us out and check out Textures. And again, this exhibit is dedicated to the art and history of Black hair, where you can get some of everything that we kind of talked about. You can see this from an artistic perspective. So Andrea Catlin, you are the winner of this. And then also we do have a Browns fan in the chat. Hey. And so we are going to give away that. I still love the Browns. I'm thirsty out here in these streets. This is how you love the Browns, when you do this. So Dr. Tamika Ellington, these are for you. So you get some orange and brown, nail polish to all the Browns lovers or the Cleveland fans. If you don't like the Browns, oh well, okay. So Dr. Ellington, this gift is for you. And then also we have some people on YouTube that I would like to give the gift of the earrings. So this is the symbol that she was talking about. That is an Adinkra symbol for the comb, and we talked about the beauty of what that means. It is not what we think it is. I mean, she gave us a beautiful esoteric meaning of the combs. So we are going to send these off to Miss C. Foster in the chat and also Miss Marvel. So all you guys have to do is email me your email addresses and you will get your very own pair of the Adinkra symbol for the, I believe it's called Dwarf. I'm sure, I hope. Yeah, Duafe. Okay, so you're gonna get your own pair of these lovely, lovely earrings. I keep telling y'all it's going down in the chat, and so Miss Morrow also has a gift that she would like to share. So before we pick the winner of the lovely gift, can you share with us what the actual gift would be?
Oh, because of the subject today, you guys, has been 400 years without a comb, and I know that the copies are rare, and they're on you said they're on eBay at a ridiculous price, and I just wanted to make sure whatever winner today that I'll make sure that you get one of actually ours from our library, which Mr. Morrow, Willie Morrow, has autographed. So whoever the winner today is, you will get a message in a autographed copy from Mr. Morrow.
Oh, they like, I want that, I want that, I want that. So we have one person that's been, rocking with us from the root to the totem. And she's been all in the chat praising the Lord, calling her all types of gurus. And I hate to get, but I got two guys because she's been down with us. And that would be Mary Taylor Shelby from Memphis, Tennessee. You are the winner of an autographed copy of 400 Years Without a Comb. This one you might want to keep because I'm telling y'all, if you go on eBay, you're just going to click it because I was like, oh, let me click that back off. So as a matter of fact, his book, and if you want a book by Vidal Sassoon called Madam, Sorry I Kept You Waiting or something, when I tell you, you guys have to understand the magnitude of what Vidal Sassoon and Dr. Willie Morrow has contributed to the aesthetics, of hair. And so when you go and you look at up these two wonderful legends, you will be impressed. So Mary Taylor Shelby, I hope that you will enjoy your gift. Everybody is like saying, thank you so much. TC, any last thoughts or comments about this wonderful interview of 400 Years Without a Comb? And before we wrap this up.
Yes, it's been enlightening as usual. And I just want to thank you again, for coming and teaching us, holding class, holding the session again. And I can't wait for next week. Thank you so much.
She said she can't wait for next week. Now, also, guys, this is going to be our last interview coming up next week with Cheryl Morrow. Now, I do have some friends that are on other platforms that were like, we want her on our show too. So it'll be in a different context. So I am going to forward her information to two of my other friends who also have a strong presence on the social media platform, who also would like to pick her brain like we did from another perspective. So we're gonna, and if you know some people that's looking to have Miss Morrow on their platform, please, reach out to her via Facebook, and she can, set all that up. But I just want to say, we had her first in Cleveland. Ain't that right, TC? So if anybody come after, it's going down at LaDosha and TC. We got it. So if everybody want to start calling Cheryl Morrow, we ain't mad, but just understand we had her first, okay? From a Cleveland perspective.
Do me a favor, LaDosha. Do me a favor. Take the comb out of your head. Hold it up. Okay. Yeah, right there. Right there in freeze frame. If you guys really truly want to understand the comb, is that when the comb is in motion in terms of an energy, it goes from one side. Where's my finger? It goes from one side up, loop, and then the teeth go this way. The teeth are waves. So it goes in a top, in a circle, down through the teeth, and then it makes a wave. The teeth are prongs. And that is and I forgot to explain that because the shape of the comb is actually those teeth are waves. They go up and down. If you were to go up, right? They go up and down to the next corner of the comb, and then they go back up where the fist is. And it's a remarkable, and I'll make sure that I give you that poster as well, Ladosha, so it explains the dynamic design and comb architecture, and what the teeth are, what the base is, and then with the crown where the fist is. And I'll explain that. And by the way, Black people never made that comb. That is a China comb. And I'll make sure that you get an original Willie Morrow Afro comb, so you won't get caught out there like that, Ladosha. Sorry, I had to put you out there.
That's what I'm here for. Sometimes you got to play the fool to catch the wise. Y'all know what I'm saying? You got to do that. You know, you don't know. So, so now we understand, guys. This ain't our history. Did y'all hear that? This is not our history. This is another great takeaway, and this is why we wanted her on the show. We could not have told this because, in my mind, this was something that's the Black people made, and I thought this was directly related to the Black Panthers. That's just my own. I made this.
And let me just say this, because my father has all the, a lot of patents and trademarks. We spoke to the Black Panther people. We do not own anything from that era. And please, I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to talk about it on the air, but it's really not a good thing. We don't we don't own the fist. We don't own the panther. We don't own the claw. We don't own nothing.
All right. Did y'all hear that? So this is about as African as my hair color. All right. So this is why we have to do these things, guys, because we'll be out here, we swearing up and down that, that things mean something that they don't mean out of just sheer, because we want to make it real. We want to make it real. We wanted to support, the struggle, you know what I'm saying? And so as we can see, this definitely is not what that is. So we're going to be back next week with the last interview. And this one is about curls and coins. Will today's beauty entrepreneurs reach legacy status? So if you are a beauty and barber professional, we want you guys again to continue to join us in the chat, in the YouTube streets, as Asar Imhotep says, in these YouTube streets. Also in the building, as my BFF Chill says. Come on and join us next week, same time at 6:00 with the one and only Cheryl Morrow, as we discuss curls and coins. Will today's beauty and barber entrepreneur reach legacy status? We thank you guys.
Excellent subject. Can't
wait. Yes, we thank you guys so very much. Mary Taylor Shelby says thank you again so much. And you guys know what I say when I'm always signing out. I'm talking about a whole lot of peace, most certainly a whole lot of love. Most definitely we talk about a whole lot of hair. But check this out. If you ain't got no hair, don't want hair, can't stand hair, can't grow no hair, whatever, we always say don't worry about it, because bald heads are always and will always be beautiful too. Deuces.